Okay, I believe it's important for us to begin our discussion with a shared understanding of the foundational concept from Revelation 1:8, God as the Alpha and Omega. This divine title truly is key to correctly interpreting the message of Daniel chapter 11. Before we explore the intricate historical prophecies, it's wonderful to be grounded in a firm grasp of God's role as both the beginning and the end. This principle frames our entire study, reminding us that the story of world empires is not a random series of events, but a narrative guided by a creator who knows the final outcome right from the very start. So, if this is a topic you don't have much familiarity with, I have a gentle suggestion that might be very helpful. Consider watching a video explanation on the Alpha and Omega. For your convenience, you can find one that I've prepared on my channel. Taking a little time to connect with the profound purpose and character of this message will give us all the perspective needed to fully appreciate the depth and certainty of the prophecies we are about to explore together. The 11th chapter of Daniel stands as one of the most remarkable and detailed prophecies in all of Scripture. It is in essence a divine roadmap of world history, presented as an encoded version of events unveiled to the prophet Daniel around 539 BC, during the pivotal first year of Darius the Mede's reign over the newly conquered Babylon. What Daniel received was a stunningly accurate chronicle of the major world powers that would shape history for centuries. This prophecy begins with the Persian Empire of his day and charts the turbulent course of conflict and conquest, detailing the transfer of dominion from Persia to Greece and onward through the subsequent divisions and conflicts that would define the political landscape. In this series, we will embark on a journey to unpack this incredible prophecy verse by verse. Our goal is to understand not just the what, the rise and fall of specific kings and kingdoms, but the how and why behind these great shifts in global power. Most importantly, we will discover that this is not merely a secular history lesson. Every war, every treaty, and every political maneuver described in Daniel 11 is presented in its direct relationship to God's covenant people, revealing a divine perspective on history that centers on their trials, triumphs, and ultimate destiny. As we delve into this prophetic roadmap, we will discover a fascinating principle at play, a concept known as repeat and enlarge. This is the Bible's own powerful version of the saying that history will repeat itself. The patterns of pride, ambition, and political conflict that dictated the transfer of power from one empire to another are not confined to the ancient world. Therefore, understanding how and why these shifts in global power occurred is vital, because these events repeat in recognizable patterns throughout time. By studying this prophecy, we are not just looking back. We are learning to recognize the echoes of the past in the headlines of today, giving us a unique framework for understanding our own place in history.
We are now going live to the United Nations Assembly meeting for a special report.
To help us follow the story, I've added a couple of handy guides on the screen. Over here, on the top left, you'll notice a year. This is our historical timestamp, letting you know approximately when the events we're watching took place. Think of this timeline as our guide. It will generally move forward, but don't be surprised if it sometimes jumps ahead, reverses, or even pauses for a moment. That's just our cue that we've landed on a really important period in history that deserves a closer look. Then, right here on the top right, the text you see will serve a couple of different roles. Sometimes it will be a short phrase or a theme, like a mini headline that tells you the main topic we're discussing at that moment.
At other times, you'll see Bible verses appear. These are our scriptural anchors. Both the themes and the verses are there to serve as our signposts, connecting the incredible history unfolding on screen directly with the key ideas and the prophecies in God's Word.
The book of Daniel stands as one of the most astonishing texts of antiquity. Written centuries before many of the events it describes, it reads less like vague allegory and more like a precise historical transcript. Nowhere is this precision more evident than in the 11th chapter. A sweeping panorama of empires rising and falling, of kings clashing, and of divine sovereignty overseeing the affairs of nations. Today, we embark on an in-depth journey through the first 4 verses of Daniel 11. We will witness the dramatic collapse of Babylon, the ascent of the Medo-Persian Colossus, the massive invasion of Greece by a king of unprecedented wealth, and the lightning-fast emergence of Alexander the Great, only to see his vast dominion shattered to the 4 winds. This is the history of the world written in advance. Our story begins in the heart of the ancient world, Babylon. It is the year 539 BC. The city, a marvel of engineering and power, believes itself impregnable, protected by massive walls, and the great river Euphrates flowing through its center. Yet its doom is sealed. The last king of Babylon was officially Nabonidus. However, Nabonidus was often absent from the capital, dedicating 10 years to building and restoring temples in distant lands. He left the administration of the empire in the hands of his son and co-regent Belshazzar. It is Belshazzar who was ruling inside the city during the night of the conquest. This is the very event described in the famous writing on the wall in Daniel chapter 5. The scene is one of ultimate hubris. While whole of Babylon was drunk with debauchery, a divine judgment was being executed outside the walls. The forces of Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Achaemenid Empire, had devised a brilliant strategy. And by what can only be described as divine providence, the defenders of Babylon made a fatal error. They left the water gates of the river that passed through the city open. The prophetic significance of this moment is profound, echoing even into the New Testament. We read in Revelation 16, verse 12, "And the 6th angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared." The Persian army diverted the Euphrates River upstream. The water level within the city dropped rapidly. Cyrus the Great marched his army down through the dry riverbed and under the city's outer gates. Finding the inner gates also unsecured during Belshazzar's final drunken feast, the Persian army captured Babylon with almost no battle. The judgment pronounced earlier that evening was swiftly fulfilled. Daniel 5:30. In that night was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans slain. 31. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. This marked the end of the Babylonian era and the dramatic beginning of the Persian Empire.
The transition of power presents a historical puzzle. Daniel states that Darius the Mede took the kingdom. Yet historically, most scholars agree that the supreme conqueror was Cyrus the Great, a Persian. How do we reconcile this? Ancient records, like the Babylonian Chronicles and the Cyrus Cylinder, confirm that Cyrus the Great became the ultimate ruler of Babylon. However, these records also mention that Cyrus appointed Gobryas, also known as Ugbaru, a Median general, as governor of Babylon immediately following the conquest. Gobryas was the one who physically led the troops into the city. About 3 weeks later, Cyrus entered Babylon himself as king. There are several explanations for the Darius-Cyrus difference proposed, but the one true idea that aligns closely with the evidence is that Darius the Mede is Gobryas. He fits Daniel's description of someone who received the kingdom on behalf of a higher authority, ruling temporarily until Cyrus arrived. Historical accounts suggest he died within a few weeks. Another interpretation identifies Darius the Mede as Cyaxares II. Some historical accounts suggest he was the last king of the Median Empire, dethroned by Cyrus in 550 BCE, yet perhaps retaining a subordinate role. In this view, the Medes acted as a subordinate army to Cyrus of Persia in conquering Babylon, with Cyaxares II ruling the Babylonian kingdom briefly around 538-537 BC. We may take any of these paths. It doesn't matter. What matters instead is the undeniable reality that there were two powers, two cooperative kings, one Median, one Persian, that worked together to overthrow Babylon. It is in this context that Daniel chapter 11 begins its detailed prophecy. Daniel 11, verse 1. Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, 539 BC, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. The angel speaking to Daniel confirms his divine support during this critical period. The kingdom was in a volatile transition between two governments after a violent overthrow. Stability was paramount. The elderly Daniel, a seasoned statesman from the previous administration, may have been the only man left with the knowledge necessary to ensure a smooth transition while maintaining law and order and minimizing the likelihood of anarchy, uprisings, or damage to the new administration. Darius recognized Daniel's indispensable value. Daniel 6, verse 1, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom. Verse 2, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. Daniel's presence ensured the stability of the new Achaemenid Persian Empire, which would dominate the Near East from 550 to 330 BC.
The prophetic visions of Daniel had already foreseen the nature of this new empire. Daniel 7, verse 5, and behold another beast, a second, like unto a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. And again in Daniel 8, verse 3, then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. This second beast of Daniel 7 and the ram in Daniel 8 represent the same entity, the Medo-Persian Empire of the East. The imagery is precise. The bear raised up itself on one side, and the ram had 2 horns, but one was higher than the other. This speaks directly to the event we just analyzed. The power that overthrew Babylon consisted of a collusion of 2 kings, but one king, Cyrus, appeared to be in higher authority. The prophecy continues, detailing the expansion of this new power. The bear had 3 ribs in the mouth, and the ram is seen pushing in 3 directions. Daniel 8:4. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward,
so that no beasts might stand before him. But he did according to his will and became great. This perfectly describes the trajectory of the Persian conquest. From its position in the east, the Persian Empire moved its mighty force to subdue great nations. After the Persians and Medes consolidated their power, they marched to conquer the Lydians in the north, the Neo-Babylonian Empire in their west, and finally Egypt in the south. These are the three ribs. The first great king of this era, Cyrus the Great, 559 to 530 BC, was not merely a conqueror. He was an instrument of divine purpose. It was Cyrus who issued the decree allowing the exiled Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. Ezra 1, verse 1. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom. Verse 2. Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah.
With the establishment of the Persian Empire confirmed, the angel speaking to Daniel now turns the page of history, moving beyond Cyrus to his successors. The prophecy in Daniel 11 becomes astonishingly specific. Daniel 11 verse 2, And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. The prophecy states that there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia immediately following Cyrus. History confirms the succession precisely. The first of the 3 kings is Cambyses II, 530 to 522 BC, Cyrus's son. He conquered Egypt in 525 BC. A harsh ruler, but powerful. According to historians, he killed his brother, Bardia, also known as Smerdis, secretly before going to Egypt so no rival could claim the throne. Later, he died from an accidental sword wound that got infected. The second of the 3 kings is Gamatah the Magian, false Smerdis, 522 BC. After Cambyses' death, a man named Gamatah, a Median priest, Magian, claimed to be Smerdis, Bardia, son of Cyrus. Since the real Smerdis was already dead, this was an impersonation. Many believed him because he looked similar and because Cambyses had killed the real Bardia in secret. He ruled for only a few months. The third of the 3 is Darius I, Darius Hystaspes, known as Darius the Great, 522 to 486 BCE. Darius overthrew the impostor and restored order. He too played a crucial role in the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, reaffirming the decree of Cyrus when the work had stalled. Ezra 6, verse 1. Then Darius the king made a decree, and search was made in the house of the rolls, where the treasures were laid up in Babylon. Ezra 6:12. I, Darius, have made a decree. Let it be done with speed. Darius was an administrative genius. Around 500 BCE, he introduced a new universal currency.
Introducing the new cryptocurrency of decentralized finance.
The registration of land, livestock, and marketplaces vastly improved government revenues, which helped maintain and improve existing infrastructure and funded increased irrigation projects in dry lands. In the lands conquered by his empire,
Darius followed the same Achaemenid tolerance that Cyrus had shown. He supported faiths and religions from his own funds, so long as the adherents were submissive and peaceable. He funded the restoration of the Israelite temple, was supportive towards Greek cults, and supported Elamite priests. He had also observed Egyptian religious rites and had built the temple for the Egyptian god Amun.
The prophecy of Daniel 11 verse 2 now moves to its climax. And the fourth shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. This fourth king is Xerxes I, Xerxes the Great, 486 to 465 BC. In this verse, the angel gives Daniel a short but detailed account of the most pivotal events to come. Xerxes' riches were doubtless conspicuous in history, primarily for the magnificent campaign he organized against Greece and his latter failure in that enterprise. He was to stir up all against the realm of Grecia. The scale of this mobilization is almost unimaginable. His army, according to the ancient historian Herodotus, was said to have consisted of 5,283,220 men. And not content with stirring up the east alone, he enlisted the Carthaginians of the west in his service, who took the field with an additional army of 300,000 men. This made, in all, one of the vastest forces that had ever assembled. He set forth with this vast concourse to conquer a small peninsula. This is the army he used in the relentless attack famously remembered in the story of the 300 Spartans. Xerxes is said to have wept at the thought that not 100 years from that time, not one of all those men would be left alive. Xerxes was the last Persian king who invaded Greece. The Persian attacks forced the independent Greek city-states to band together for their survival, setting the stage for the next shift in world power. The prophecy passes over the 9 successors of Xerxes in the Persian Empire. While the prophecy skips ahead, it is worth noting the continued involvement of Persian kings in the affairs of Judea. Artaxerxes I, successor to Xerxes, issued the third and final decree concerning the rebuilding efforts in Jerusalem. Ezra 7:21, and I, even I, Artaxerxes the king, do make a decree to all the treasurers which are beyond the river, that whatsoever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven, shall require of you, it be done speedily. The work was finished according to the commandment of the God of Israel, and according to the commandment of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes king of Persia. This account is put in here as a consideration, as it marks a crucial prophetic timeline. This brings us to the final Persian king, the one who would face the rising storm from the west, Darius III.
As Persia waned, a storm was gathering in the west. The man who would become the mighty king of prophecy was being forged in the crucible of Macedon. Alexander was born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of Macedon. His father was King Philip II, a brilliant but ruthless ruler who had transformed Macedon from a weak backwater kingdom into the most powerful military force in Greece. His mother, Olympias, a woman of fiery ambition, raised him with an unshakable belief in his destiny. From his earliest years, Alexander was told he was not just a prince, but a man chosen for greatness. His education was unparalleled. As a boy, Alexander was tutored by none other than the great philosopher Aristotle. Under this tutelage, Alexander developed a sharp intellect, a profound love for learning, and a conviction that he was meant to surpass the achievements of ordinary men. He immersed himself in philosophy and science, but it was the legends of Homer's Iliad that truly captured his spirit. To Alexander, Achilles became the model of heroism, and he famously carried a copy of the Iliad throughout all his campaigns. From childhood, Alexander displayed remarkable courage. When he was only about 12, he famously tamed the wild horse Bucephalus that no one else could ride. This act convinced Philip that his son possessed a special destiny. Philip's reign brought nearly all of Greece under Macedonian domination through diplomacy and relentless warfare. By 338 BC, Philip had defeated the combined forces of Athens and Thebes at the Battle of Chaeronea, a battle in which the young Alexander, only 18, commanded the Macedonian cavalry with astonishing skill. 2 years later, as Philip prepared for his grand invasion of the Persian Empire, he was assassinated amidst palace intrigue. At just 20 years old, Alexander inherited the throne. It was a moment of extreme peril. Macedon's Greek allies and rivals sensed weakness and sought to break free. But Alexander moved with breathtaking speed. As a leopard pounces its prey, he crushed rebellions in the north, then marched south to reassert control. When Thebes revolted, he destroyed the city utterly, sparing only temples and the house of the poet Pindar. This ruthless act shocked Greece into obedience. Athens and the others submitted without a fight. By 335 BC, Alexander stood as the undisputed leader of Greece. Once Greece was secure, Alexander turned to the grand mission his father had begun, the invasion of the Persian Empire, then ruled by Darius III. Persia was vast, stretching from Asia Minor to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond. But Alexander believed it could be conquered if struck with speed and precision. In 334 BC, with about 35,000 soldiers, the relatively small army compared to Persia's immense forces, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor. In a gesture of profound symbolism, he hurled a spear into the ground before stepping onto Asian soil, claiming the Persian lands as his by right of conquest. Darius III underestimated the threat. He never showed up for the first major confrontation, the Battle of the Granicus, supposing his satraps could deal with the crisis while he remained in Persepolis. He was wrong. In 333 BC, Darius took the field against Alexander's army at the Battle of Issus. His force outnumbered Alexander's soldiers by at least a 2-to-1 ratio, but Darius was still outflanked, defeated, and forced to flee. The Battle of Issus was a decisive Hellenic victory. It was the first time the Persian army was defeated with the king present. Darius fled so fast that Alexander captured Darius's headquarters and took his family, his wife, his daughters, and his mother as prisoners. Alexander treated the captured women with great respect. In 331 BC, the final confrontation occurred at the Battle of Gaugamela. Circumstances were more in Darius's favor. He had superior numbers and favorable ground for his scythed chariots. Despite these advantages, he still fled the battle before any victor had been decided, abandoning his commanders and his elite soldiers. The casualties ensured that Darius would never again raise an imperial army. Darius fled to Ecbatana, while Alexander took possession of the rest of the empire. Alexander refused several peace offers and decided to pursue Darius. As Darius retreated toward Bactria, the Persian forces became increasingly demoralized.
This led to a coup led by Bessus, a satrap. Bessus of his conspirators bound Darius and threw him in an ox cart. As Alexander's forces closed in, the conspirators threw javelins at Darius and left him to die. A Macedonian soldier found Darius either dead or dying shortly thereafter. Alexander took the signet ring off the dead king's finger. Afterwards, he sent Darius's body back to Persepolis, gave him a magnificent funeral, and ordered that he be buried in the royal tombs. With the king defeated and given a proper burial, Alexander's rulership of Persia became official.
This brings us to Alexander III, Alexander the Great, and the rise of the Greece Empire, from 331 to 323 BCE. Daniel 11, verse 3. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. Again, the earlier visions of Daniel provide the symbolic context. Daniel 7, verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And in Daniel 8, verse 5, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. The clash was decisive. Verse 7, and I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Alexander's lightning campaign successfully placed him as the absolute lord of that empire. As the historian Prodeo noted, his dominion was great, including the greater portion of the then-known habitable world, and he did according to his will. The 4 wings emphasize the swiftness of his conquest. Alexander achieved this great dominion in such a young age and in such a short amount of time. The usage of the leopard signifies readiness and quick action, ready to pounce. But at the height of his power, the prophecy foretold a sudden end. In 323 BC, his will led him into a drunken debauch, as the result of which he dieth, and his vainglorious and ambitious projects went into sudden, total ruin. Daniel 11, verse 4. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. The prophecy is explicit. The kingdom would be divided, but not to his posterity. Alexander left no suitable heir. His wife Roxana was pregnant when he died. His child, Alexander IV, was the rightful heir, but he was an infant in a world controlled by ambitious generals. In 309 BC, as Alexander IV approached the age of 14, the age at which he could assert his authority, Cassander, one of the generals, commanded Glaucius to secretly assassinate the 14-year-old and his mother. They were both poisoned. Within a few years after Alexander's death, all his posterity had fallen victim to the jealousy of his successors. His earthly race went from the highest pinnacle of earthly glory to the lowest depths of oblivion and death.
The death of Alexander initiated the Wars of the Diadochi, or Wars of Alexander's Successors, 322 to 281 BC. This was a series of conflicts fought between Alexander the Great's generals over the rule of his vast empire. Initially, Antigonus I attempted to take control of the whole of Alexander's empire. His ambition led to his defeat and death. The most powerful dynasts of the empire, now kings in their own right,
Cassander, Seleucus, Ptolemy, and Lysimachus allied against Antigonus. In 301 BC, Antigonus was defeated at the Battle of Ipsus. This ended the dream of a unified empire. Instead, these kings established a troubled balance of power and accepted their kingdoms as separate realms. The kingdom was divided toward the four winds of heaven, corresponding to the four heads of the leopard. The divisions of Alexander's kingdom with respect to Palestine were situated as follows. Cassander had Greece and the adjacent countries, west. Lysimachus had Thrace and Asia Minor, north. Seleucus I Nicator had Syria and Babylon, east. Ptolemy I Soter had Egypt and the neighboring countries, south.
During the wars and revolutions which for long ages succeeded, these geographical boundaries were subject to minor changes. But whatever changes might occur, these first divisions of the empire determined the geopolitical landscape for the centuries that followed.
In just 4 verses, Daniel chapter 11 has accurately predicted the course of history, spanning over 2 centuries. From the rise of the Medo-Persian coalition in 539 BC, we have witnessed the precise succession of Persian kings, Cambyses II, False Smerdis, and Darius I. We have seen the rise of the 4th king, Xerxes the Great, whose immense wealth mobilized the ancient world against Greece. We have then seen the prophecy leap forward to the rise of Alexander the Great, the mighty king forged in Macedon, who conquered with unprecedented speed, crushing the Persian Empire. And finally, we witnessed his sudden death, the extinction of his lineage, and the division of his empire among his 4 generals.
The precision of these prophecies defies skeptical explanations. They stand as a testament to a divine hand guiding the course of human events, revealing the future before it unfolds.
And this is only the beginning.